When you hear this, what do you feel? At IMAX, you'll feel transported by our unique sound system and crystal clear images. Like you're running across a desert planet or defending your city from a surprise invasion. With immersive IMAX sound and screens curved to show more, we take fans to the edge of their seats. Get tickets to Dune Part 2 now and experience it in IMAX's exclusive expanded aspect ratio.
This episode is brought to you by Pepsi Wild Cherry. Pepsi Wild Cherry is bursting with delicious cherry flavor and a sweet, crisp taste that gives you more to go wild for. Getting wild may look different these days, but whether it's opting for a solo Friday binge watch or a big night out, everyone can indulge in their wild side with Pepsi Wild Cherry. Also available in Zero Sugar. So grab a Pepsi Wild Cherry and get wild.
Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Sandy MacKinnon. I played bass for the band Royal Tusk. Me and Brian Colburn today are going to get together on my weekly mixtape to talk all things hard rock. We have some fun, we're going to kill it, and let's get to it.
Welcome to My Weekly Mixtape, a podcast that takes the classic mixtape approach to building a modern playlist. I'm your host, Brian Colburn. Joining me tonight as guest curator is Sandy MacKinnon, bassist for Royal Tusk. Sandy, thank you so much for joining me on My Weekly Mixtape, man.
I'm pumped to be here, brother.
Well, I'd like to start by asking you the same question I ask all of my first-time guests, and that is, what does the word mixtape mean to you?
You know what? I'm glad to say that I actually grew up in the era of actually making mixtapes with the two cassette players and stuff like that, or holding down the buttons when you're trying to record it off of radio or whatever.
Hell yeah.
So they mean a lot. Like I mean, back in the day, I mean, if I was interested in a girl and I would be like, this is what I've been listening to on Mr. Cool, and I'd slip it over or whatever. And meanwhile, she's going, what the hell is this shit?
Well, I am so stoked to have you on the show tonight because not only are we co-curating a mixtape filled with modern hard rock songs, we're also going to be diving into tracks from the band's brand new album, Altruistic. Now, since Royal Tusk has toured with bands and artists such as Slash, Pop Evil, Monster Truck, and Big Wreck, as well as performed on the Shiprock Cruise, among many other things,
yep,
I'm sure it's safe to say you probably have a wide bank of songs and bands to choose from for tonight. What were you looking to bring to the table, musically speaking, with your song choices?
I guess when you asked me, I was sort of sitting there and I got a little stressed out because I was like, what I normally listen to is different from what Dan normally listens to or what Quinn normally listens to. And that's what makes us work so well together, is because we don't have one genre that we sort of pull from. We all listen to different stuff. So I'd say for myself in the band, I listen to a lot of, I guess more on the heavy side of things. But we all still like our pop music, as you can tell, and even most Tusk songs, you can hear it.
Of course. Well, let's get down to business.
Hell yeah.
Tonight, as I mentioned at the top of the show, Sandy and I will be curating the ultimate modern hard rock mixtape, and we're going to use that old cassette deck approach. Sandy, as my special guest, will begin side A with his first song choice, and then I'll choose a song that I feel best follows up that choice. We'll then flip-flop choosing songs until we've mapped out 10 tracks for side A. We'll then give our mixtape a proverbial flip, and we'll map out side B, only this time I'll kick things off with Sandy choosing second. Our overall goal for this episode is to craft the best modern hard rock mixtape possible through only 20 songs. At the end of the show, you can take our conversation to the next level by visiting the episode page at myweeklymixtape.com to give our final mixtape a listen via the embedded playlist. And if you like what you're hearing on the show, you can help me out by either telling a friend, leaving the show a 5-star review wherever you're tuning in, or becoming a Patreon mixtaper at patreon.com/myweeklymixtape. And before we get started, a few of the Patreon mixtapers chimed in with songs they would use to kick off tonight, and I want to give a quick shout out to a few of those. Tom Hutchinson chimed in with Baroness's Shock Me. Chad Lamassa chimed in with Dead Sarah's Weatherman, saying the opening riff by Susie Medley hooked me the first time I ever heard that song, and I've been a fan ever since. I personally couldn't agree more. That's an absolute monster. Both Philip Bergman and David Owens both chimed in with Andrew WK's Party Hard as a fun way to kick off the festivities. Cactus Pete chimed in with Alter Bridge's Pieces Broken, saying it's one of his favorite guitar riffs ever. And Seeker chimed in saying he can't go past Royal Blood. They're doing brilliant things that sound new but still respect the rock. And he went with Out of the Black from their self-titled album.
Hey, Pantheon listeners, Christian Swain here. You caught me just finishing up some editing on Getting Real with John and Beth. I want to share my first experience with Factor Meals for you. I think you'll find this interesting because I bet the same thing happens to you. I had just received my first shipment from Factor Meals the other day, and I was excited to try one of the prepared restaurant quality meals for myself. Anyway, I was working away and noticed it was very late, and it was my night to make dinner. I jumped up and headed to the kitchen, went to grab the ingredients for the dish I was going to make, and realized I was missing a prime ingredient. Well, I could make a run to the store, or I could make one of my new Factor meals. Actually, the choice was easy. I grabbed a cavatappi, an Italian-style pork ragu with garlic broccoli, heated the oven per instructions, and minutes later was enjoying a very delicious, nutritious, and dietitian-approved meal. It really was everything Factor Meals said it would be. No prep, no mess meals. Factor Meals are 100% ready to heat and eat. Take it from me and head to factormeals.com/Pantheon50 and use the code Pantheon50 to get 50% off. That's factormeals.com/Pantheon50 and use the code Pantheon50 to get 50% off. Hey, Pantheon listeners, Christian Swain again with something every podcast listener and music junkie needs to hear. As I'm sure you can guess, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I also listen to a lot of music, so having high-quality headphones and earbuds are absolutely critical to my day. Oh, and I have numerous pairs. In fact, I have a junk drawer of used devices that have bitten the dust, so I've tried them all. Recently, I was sent a pair of earbuds by Raycon, and the first thing I noticed was the cost. Looks like their products are about half the price of other premium brands. Okay, that's cool. And the reviews seem pretty stellar. Okay, checks that box. So I got my Raycon everyday earbuds. A nice packaging to open, and what I immediately noticed were the pack of ear tips for sizing. I'll tell you, I have small ear canals. I know, a flaw. So to see choices for the best fit, especially while exercising, oh yeah. And yes, they were immediately comfortable. Sound quality was great too. Plus, I have 3 EQ options that I love because I like more bass in my music and less in the podcasts. 8 hours of playtime for the battery is great as well. Surround sound, noise canceling, and awareness mode all included. I think I'm in business, and I just realized I've had them in all day. Like I said, super comfortable. Go to buyraycon.com/Pantheon today to get 20% off your Raycon order plus free shipping. That's right. You'll get 20% off and free shipping at buyraycon.com/Pantheon.
So, Sandy, with those picks out in the musical atmosphere, I'm going to officially press the record button on our mixtape and turn the floor over to you. What song are you choosing to kick off side A, and why?
I'm going to kick off with something a little bit heavier. We actually used to tour with the guitar player in this band, and it's a band from the UK called The Architects, and their brand new single called Seeing Red. When you asked for more modern stuff, I sort of had to go into my look at my Spotify lists and sort of see what I've been listening to. And I'm always a champion for my friends' bands. Now, the guitar player, Adam, he's from Vancouver, and my old band and his old band used to tour together. So when I heard he kind of got the call up to be the guitar player in one of Europe's biggest metal bands, I was overjoyed for him. So I keep tabs on his career, and this single is definitely a barn burner. It's heavier and shit, and I love listening to it and knowing that he's a man in the high 6. I love that shit.
Hell yeah. This is a monster song. This is definitely taking the hard rock thing to the extreme and bringing the metal into it. So I like where you're going with this right from the jump, because this gets the energy up, and kicking it off with a level 10 song is awesome. I'm all here for that.
Hell yeah.
So following that up, I think I'm going to bring it a little bit more towards the hard rock, but still keep that monster riffage going. And I'm going to go with a song that dropped in 2023 from their album Screaming at the Sky. I'm going to go with Blackstone Cherry's Out of Pocket. I've been a fan of this band since their self-titled album in 2006, and they effortlessly toe the line between Southern rock, hard rock, and blues, and they do it with such a friggin' swagger. And Out of Pocket is a classic example of the kind of monster hard riffs you get throughout Blackstone Cherry's catalog. And I feel like it's a good place to start if you're looking to kind of check out their newer music.
You know, the term like Southern rock to me was always like kind of weird. Like, what the hell does that even, like, I know what it means, but it's like, there's a sound, especially newer band, like for a new band to say that it sounds like Southern rock, I say Blackstone Cherry is like if you were to look in the dictionary, their picture would be right there, because they are killing it. It definitely has that throwback kind of swampiness feel to it, kind of dirty. It's got that swagger. And I guess that's what it means. And I didn't mean to sound like a dumbass.
Not at all.
What Southern rock is, we all know what it is, but it's more of a feeling, I think, than a genre. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah, they definitely, when you hear a song like Peace is Free, you hear the Southern rock side of things where it's a little slower, a little bit more refined. But then when they open up, it's more of the vibe of the song than it is the genre itself. And it's merging the two.
Exactly. And I think that's a badass choice you picked. That band's cool. That band's really cool.
All right. Well, we're back to you now for track 3 to follow that up.
Man, I for modern, it's definitely not modern, but this band definitely inspired us a ton while we were writing Altruistic. Now, the band, the Deftones for us, it's just, you know, it's not so much always riffing and always like doing the idea that less is more. Sometimes just hits harder than a sledgehammer. Like a band like Deftones, where they're riding one note all together. It's so sonically massive. It sounds like it feels like a weight on your chest, kind of. And that's what I really like about that band. And I think the song You've Seen the Butcher off the album Diamond Eyes, it's got a really just kind of has a delayed guitar riff, and it's kind of haunting, and it slowly makes you bang your head, and it's totally kick-ass.
Couldn't agree more. Diamond Eyes, to me, might be one of the Deftones' most underrated albums. I feel like it's not in the conversation as much as it should be, because that album's full of killer tracks.
Oh, yeah.
This is a really underrated album in their catalog. I love it. I absolutely love it.
This song, I mean, it's maybe obviously not a single or anything like that, but I also, when Royal Tusk started out, we were on tour with Big Wreck. I remember Thornley was sound checking to that, and I was like, oh yeah, hell yeah, this guy's a music fan. He listens to everything from like really obscure rock and roll to even mainstream stuff, which I would consider Deftones pretty mainstream when it comes to metal.
Well, from one basis to another, I'm going to follow up with a song that I'm going to align with one of the Patreon mixtapers for a band and a song. And from their 2014 self-titled album, I'm going to go with Royal Blood's Out of the Black.
Hell yeah.
I mean, when you're talking about a band that is a two-piece with no guitar, for those of you that aren't familiar with Royal Blood, they are a singer/bassist and a drummer. That's it. And yet they pull off a sound that's so massive, you would think it was a 4 or 5 piece band. And that speaks volumes about this group. And now they have brought a lot more of the pop element into their later albums, like Typhoons and their new album, but they still have this heft. And as a bass player, I love the fact, and it's a selfish fact, but I love the fact that the bass is front and center in the sound. And it's just friggin' this riff is massive. So Out of the Black by Royal Blood.
Oh, this band is so good. When I first heard them, I didn't know what to really think. I was just like, oh yeah, it's cool. I didn't know if it was really rocking my socks, but then you sit down with it and you're like, holy shit, no, it actually kicks ass. And then you do go, oh, it's just the bass player and the drummer. And the best thing about music is it doesn't need to be stripped down. You can do whatever you want with it. If it's just bass and drums, it's just bass and drums. But if they're adding keys or all these other sounds, it's great. Those two guys working together sounds incredible.
All right. Well, now we are following that up with track 5. Where are you going to take it from here?
Oh Lord, again, I'm going to throw it back again, but I'm going to throw it back quite a bit more. And before we started this talking on this, you had told me you brought your kids to go see Metallica.
Yes.
Now, how on earth could we do a rock or metal playlist without any Metallica on it? Right?
You can't.
It's impossible. But I was like, and that was, if you could do a whole podcast, go name your top however many Metallica songs, I still would be shitting my pants trying to figure out which ones are my favorite.
Oh, there would be fistfights.
100%. I was like, the way I did it was, what was the last one that you were partying to? And I could tell based on like, what was I last listening to? I'm like, oh, that was Sunday after Super Bowl. And I obviously had a million beers. I'm like, you were listening to Blackened. Yes! The first track on And Justice for All.
When I took my daughter to see them this past summer at MetLife Stadium, I had a bucket list Metallica song that I had never seen them perform live. And taking into consideration, I've seen them live already about a dozen times. And I almost damn cried when the tape started playing of the reversed guitar in the beginning. And Justice for All is my favorite Metallica album. Blackened is my favorite ever Metallica song. So you just picked a goldmine winner as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I saw the Garage Inc. show at Roseland Ballroom when Metallica played nothing but covers. I saw the S&M concert and they never played Blackened. I'm like, when am I going to get a Blackened? I finally got a Blackened and it was friggin' glorious. I absolutely love the pick.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm going to follow up Metallica with one of the bands that's opening for them on this tour. Wolf Van Halen, Mammoth WVH, You're to Blame from his 2021 self-titled album. I mean, this kid plays every freaking instrument on this album, and it sounds so tight and so clean. And on top of that, he could sing. He could really friggin' sing.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's putting out these songs, he could easily do his father's guitar pyrotechnics and go out and put out Van Halen style music, but instead he's carving his own path. And I respect that more because he has his own musical voice and it's just coming through in epic fashion. I think Mammoth WVH is a hard rock band to be on the lookout for in the next few years.
I absolutely agree. And one of the things I will say about that as well is it's so easy to just copy styles and do the exact same thing, but there is no crossover really between Mammoth and any Van Halen stuff. Like there's no there's no sound that other than there's shredding, but even the shredding is different. I love exactly to go on your point. Like it's just badass rock and roll. It's not as badass as Van Halen was and is, like it's just it's just different. And you're exactly to your point. He's carving his own way and not just hanging off the coattails. He also looks like a really nice guy.
Oh my God. He seems like the kind of guy that you could sit down with and just geek out over music because he seems like a fan first and foremost. When you hear him talking about other artists, you could tell that there's a love and admiration for not only the music he grew up seeing through his father, but the music that he's taken on his own, because he went out and played, if I'm not mistaken, when Tremonti went out and did a solo tour outside of Alter Bridge.
That's right.
So, I mean, the dude just is a mecca of talent. And both of his albums, I think 1 and 2 are both fantastic, but You're to Blame is that riff that as soon as you hear it, your head just starts going and you're like, this is going to get dirt. And when he kicks in, you're all in.
And his voice is angelic.
He can hit some ridiculously high notes, and let's be honest, on the tours that he did with Van Halen, he was the Michael Anthony role, both on bass and vocally.
I went and saw Black Sabbath when they did their final tour, and it was insane. but no Bill Ward on the drums. And I get it. The guy they got to replace him was incredible. Obviously, you're not going to get a schlub, but I was kind of like, and that was the same kind of feeling I had with no Michael Anthony. But I mean, that's interband stuff, and that's between them and their God, I guess, and that's their own thing to deal with.
I'm not gonna lie. This summer, I'm checking off the Sammy list. This summer, I'm gonna go see Sammy with Michael Anthony, Satriani, and Jason Bonham doing the Night of Van Halen. I know it's not Van Halen, but if they were gonna pick a guitarist that could pull off Eddie Van Halen to the point where you can enjoy it in a live setting, they didn't grab a slouch. Satriani's one of the best. He does some monster stuff with Chickenfoot. I mean, this band is top notch. I'm pretty stoked to see that this summer.
I mean, Van Hagar is named like all those songs are incredible. I love that era too. Obviously, I'm a David Lee Roth through and through, but those Van Hagar records are no slouch.
All right, we had a Metallica Mammoth back-to-back 1-2 punch. What are you going with for track 7?
I'm going back to the heavier side. I'm going back to the metal side of things. A band that we look up to a lot as a collective group in Royal Tusk is we love Mastodon.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. The riffing, how it can go from absolutely brutally punishing heaviness, just sweet kind of melodies, and like it just kind of bounces around, and it can get really evil sounding, and it's just they're unreal, and it's a song more than I could chew off their newest record, Plush and Grim. Obviously, right when that record dropped, I stayed up late to just listen to it, and it did not disappoint. I love that they're a band that has gone from being way more on the metal side of things to now, I might even say it's like kind of on the weird spectrum. Like a band that goes out and tours with Primus is the same band that's going to be going out with Lamb of God this coming year. So, I mean, you're talking about diverse heavy metal music. I think Mastodon is that.
I couldn't agree more. And they're one of those bands that is so widely respected. We just talked about Mammoth WVH, but I know he's posted about them several times, just gushing over the songs. They almost reach this level of like Tool, where people just put them in a different bracket all in of itself. Like, is this metal? Is this hard rock? No, this is Mastodon. No, this is Tool. It's its own thing. And to be able to carve that out in this current musical landscape is not an easy feat, and they do it with such ease. Album after album. It just seems effortless for these guys.
Watching them live is incredible, like nice laser shows. You can enjoy them over an edible or two. And like I really, really enjoy listening to that band. One of the things, quick little story here, during pandemic, you know how everyone was like releasing weird kind of songs and stuff like that. Dan actually did a cover version of Filter's Hey Man, Nice Shot.
Oh, what a great song.
And you can check it out on YouTube. It's there, but it's the guitar player, Bill Keller from Mastodon, did it with him.
Whoa.
And Fluff from Dragged Under, was of Dragged Under, and Chow from Stone Sour, and Tanner from In Flames. Quite a lineup.
Oh, God, I'm going to have to embed that over at the episode page at myweeklymixtape.com so anyone listening can go check out that video. I'll make sure to do that.
I was absolutely like watching Dan do it. I was green with jealousy. I did pick Filter on there, but that song, and I was like, you know what? I'll just mention it actually, because I just, Mastodon and them being together and doing that was just like, to me, was just totally kick ass.
Couldn't agree more. And what I'm going to do now is do something we haven't done yet. I'm going to bring the ladies into this.
Oh, hell yeah.
Because hard rock has its share of amazing female singers. And one of my favorites over the last 2 decades was Lacey Sturm from Flyleaf.
Oh, hell yeah.
And in 2023, she put out an album, Canonic Metanoia. And this album is so massive and so heavy. I'm going to go with the song Reconcile. Now, I've always been a fan of Lacey's work with Flyleaf, and I followed her through 2016's Life Screams, which was another killer album. But it was a bummer that it took from 2016 to 2023 to get a new album from her. But in that time, she's reunited with Flyleaf again, and they're doing things together, as well as her doing her solo stuff. Reconcile has this monster riff, and Lacey's voice is ridiculously powerful, yet extremely delicate and dynamic. She has such a way to go from the heft to the soft, like turning on a light switch on and off. Like there's no curve with it. It's just boom, she's there. And it's so unique. Her voice really stands out. As soon as you hear it, you're like, that's Lacey. And I feel like that deserves a spotlight in this mix tonight. So Lacey Sturm's Reconcile.
That's a great choice. That's a a very unique sounding voice. In the hard rock genre, that is just like a powerful, powerful voice.
Well, following that up, we each have one pick left for side A. What do you got?
I'm going to keep it in the theme of the ladies. There's this band that I don't know. They're not really big in North America. I discovered them almost by accident while going down a Spotify rabbit hole. And I found out they were actually quite prominent in Europe, headlining some festivals and stuff like that. But they're called Brutus. And they're from Belgium. They're a 3-piece band. And the song is called War. And the vocalist, she actually is the drummer as well.
Really?
Big time.
So we're talking like a Levon Helm in the band here.
But I'm talking about like a band that's known for opening for bands like Deftones or Converge. Like you've got all these spectrums of like thrashier metal to like really just big sounds. Oh, and Thrice and stuff. And it's like,
really?
It's cool. And it's got these ethereal parts and there's parts that are just really blasty. It goes from being punk. It goes from almost kind of shoegazy parts. I love this band. And every time I get a chance to show somebody, I always feel like I'm championing this band because I don't feel like not enough people know them here in North America.
Well, I will be perfectly honest. You have stumped me on this one, and I cannot wait until we're done recording. I've already got it pulled up here. I'll be experiencing this song for the first time, and I'm so stoked to hear it after the way you described it, because that sounds right up my alley. So thank you, because I love when people introduce me to new songs.
Song War, like it has an insane intro. It's just, it's a builder, and then it's like...
Well, I know what I'm going to close this side with, because in 2022, this band released one of my favorite albums of the year. And here we are 2 years later, and I still rock this album probably once a month. And this is a band that's music has evolved over the last 20-something years. The band I'm going with is Papa Roach, pretty much a household name to anybody in the country, nu metal, last resort. But in 2022, they released the album Ego Trip, which was probably my favorite album of the year. And the opening track on it, Kill the Noise, is so massive. It's one of the songs that they either opened with or put in the second slot of their shows. So that shows how much faith they have in the song to get people up and moving. And the fact that they were able to pair it up. The last time I took the whole family to see them, it was Between Angels and Insects, followed by Kill the Noise. And the 1-2 punch works so well together. Ego Trip as an album was very interesting to me because I feel like if you listen to Infest and then you listen to 2019's Who Do You Trust, it almost feels like there's two different bands. However, on Ego Trip, the band took the entire evolution of their music and took every style that they ever incorporated and threw it into a blender and created something that really would please a fan of Papa Roach from any era. If you loved the nu metal rapping stuff that took place on Infest, there's something for you. If you loved the emotive stuff like Lifeline in the early to mid 2010s, there's something for you. If you like the later stuff like Renegade Music and Who Do You Trust, there's something for... I could have picked any track on this album because I absolutely love it from start to finish, but Kill the Noise punches you right in the face, and I think it's a great way to close out the side, bookending The Architects Seeing Red.
The thing about Papa Roach, we were out in the UK with, we were supporting Monster Truck out there. And a couple of the bigger venues have 2 rooms in them and stuff like that. And a couple nights, this other room had Papa Roach in there. And so we would go over there and like after we would play, we'd just like pack up our shit because we were the opener, run over and we would be able to catch Papa Roach's set. And they were incredible every single night. But that's only overlooked by how nice Jacoby Shaddix is. We run into him, either backstage or out and about when everyone's just a kill in the afternoon, going for a walk or something like that. And he was always such a nice dude. Shout out to Papa Roach. That whole crew is just a nice crew of dudes.
I'm going to sidebar with one story about Jacoby because 20-something years ago, I saw with one of my buddies, Papa Roach open for, ready for this lineup, it was Papa Roach, Eminem in the mid slot, and Limp Bizkit as the headliner.
Oh, hell yeah. That sounds wicked.
We were front row in the arena, right on the side of the stage. And in between bands, Papa Roach was hanging out right in front of us. So I called him over. I work in radio. I'm a radio guy. I said, tomorrow you're doing a radio tour and I'm going to be right in the hallway next to you. So make sure you stop by and say hi. And he gave me like one of the bro hugs. He said, sure thing, dude. And my buddy said, he's not going to remember that tomorrow morning. Next morning, I'm sitting at work. I'm typing. It's like 10 o'clock. And I hear, yo, where the F's my boy Brian at? Up and down the halls. And my boss comes in. She goes, Brian, it sounds like somebody wants to know where the F you're at. And I'm like, oh, God. She goes, who is that? I said, that's our 10 o'clock radio tour. That's Cody Dick from Papa Roach. She goes, well, why don't you go? And I went out in the hallway. He's like, yo, dude. And he came over and he gave me a big hug and brought me back into the studio with the rest of the band. And they were all really cool. They signed a copy of my Infest CD and we chatted for like 15 minutes. It was just absolutely awesome. That moment made me a ride or die fan for Papa Roach.
Exactly. I can't agree with you more. That's a great story, actually.
Well, there you have it, folks. Side A of our ultimate hard rock mixtape, which kicked off with the Architects' Seeing Red, Blackstone Cherries Out of Pocket, Deftones' The Butcher, Royal Blood's Out of the Black, Metallica's Blackened. Nice follow up there. Black into Blackened.
Yeah.
Mammoth WVH, You're to Blame, Mastodon's More Than I Can Chew, Lacey Sturm's Reconcile, Brutus's War, and Papa Roach's Kill the Noise. Head over to myweeklymixtape.com to hear all the songs we've discussed in this mix through the playlist embedded on the episode page. Now, I'm super excited to dive into some of the tracks from Royal Tusk's new album, Altruistic, starting with the thrashy album opening track, Fire in Your Veins. Now, when you compare Fire in Your Veins to opening tracks from your Mountain EP, Shadow of Love, Deal Breakers Dynamo, or Tusk 2's First Time, I personally hear an evolution of the opening tracks getting consistently heavier and more aggressive with each Royal Tusk release. Is that something the band ever took into consideration when coming up with the album sequencing?
I mean, we've had a few personnel changes from Mountain to where we are now. And I really think that, like, when you write music together with certain people, that's what the sound that comes out of it. So it's not so much that we're trying to write heavier. It's just that we're writing heavier music because the guys that it's been a mainstay of me, Quinn, and Dan since Deal Breaker. And even in Deal Breaker, we still had some other members that were still, we had an organ player and stuff like that. But when he left, we didn't change that. We just kept going as a 4-piece now. And it was just back to 2 guitars, bass, and drums. And as we just kept going, man, like I said, it would be crazy for me to think that we were intentionally just writing heavier music. We're like, oh, we should be heavy now. but that's not the case. It's just the way the way it's going.
And the thrash element to me was something that I hear elements of it on other albums like Tusk 2, but to be front and center as the album opening track, it was such a kick in the face. And I love the way you open this album. So I'm kind of curious how this one came together for you.
I mean, that song was the last song that we greenlighted for the record.
Really?
Yeah, we had I'm telling you, there's probably a dozen different demos of that song with different choruses, different ways we played the riff, different arrangements. For some reason, we just couldn't get it to sound right. And then we just took a break from it. When we revisited, it was like, whatever we're doing now sounds the best. So don't fuck with it too much. Let's it seems the most normal to us. Like it's like looking at each other. Is something rubbing you the wrong way? No. So yeah, that's the way it sort of went.
Well, next up in my altruistic deep dive is the anthemic Head Up.
Oh.
In the middle of tracking this album, your frontman, Daniel Carreri, went through a pretty scary, almost year-long ordeal due to a blood clot in his lung, which left him barely able to speak. Can that insanely intense and, quite frankly, scary situation lend itself to the overall heft and weight of Altruistic as an album as a whole? Because to me, it's safe to say, being a fan of the band's entire catalog, I feel like Altruistic is the band's heaviest effort to date.
I would agree with you. Absolutely. It is our heaviest to date. When we finished the record, when we did our last vocal note and our last little auxiliary percussion or whatever you have, 1 week of the day, Dan got sick, and he was sick for the next 2 years. Me and Dan go back. We grew up in the same neighborhood. We were friends. We played on the same soccer team. We were 5 years old, skateboarded. We toured in our old band together all over the world and stuff. And then he started this one and asked me to come along. And I absolutely. So when you're going to your friend's house every day to walk his dog, because he can't do it because he's bedridden, it was a bit of an eye opener for all of us. Some things are bigger than the band. You want your boys to be healthy and happy. And that's something that sometimes, the health, maybe we take for granted, but when you kind of are face to face with it, it's rough, And so Head Up, I mean, we had already written it, and it's a bit of a jock jam, which we loved. And we are also, because we're from Edmonton, we are diehard Edmonton Oilers fans.
I kind of figured that.
We take the good with the good, we take the bad with the bad. We've been to both ends of the pool. But right now, they are actually using our song when the Oilers come in the third period at the Rogers Stadium.
Oh, that's badass.
Oh, man. And for us, like, just growing up and seeing that shit, you're like, oh, that to me was like, I'm in my nerdy, that I think I've made it sort of moment.
I mean, as a sports fan myself, could there be anything cooler than seeing one of your favorite teams come out to a song you wrote and recorded?
Oh, yeah. And then we just went on that historic run, which was cut last week, but it was knowing that we're part of this year's run for the Cup is great.
Yeah. Well, the band self-produced Altruistic. Can you talk about what that meant in terms of writing, production, and the release process versus your other efforts that were done with labels involved?
Absolutely. When we started doing this, we kind of looked at each other. It was the way we sort of, our hand were kind of forced, just judging by the way the world was at the time. It's not like we could fly somewhere and make the record. We couldn't have people fly in to make the record. But we knew we had a handful of great songs and great demos that we could probably pick from. And, you know, none of us have, like, we've all worked in making records before, so we kind of have an idea of, like, what we're doing, you know what I mean? It's not like we need someone there to tell us how to do the songs, but we had the studio, free run of the studio for months and months and months. Now, growing up, I was like, man, it'd be so cool to make a record like Aerosmith. They just seem to get to lock themselves in the studio for a year straight and just get drunk and hang out and party and make a record. You know, and when you, especially in this day and age in the music industry, that's not the case. You have a finite amount of time because you have a finite amount of money to make a goddamn record. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That was the best part about the way the world was during pandemic, is they were like, yeah, no one's using the studio. Go ahead. Huh. Okay. So we had our 9 to 5 and go in and create, which was the best. So Quinn, when we're not on the road, his job is he produces some other bands as well, too. So he's able to do the engineering side of things. Dan has produced tons of artists and helped co-write stuff. I've been there alongside the both of them forever, so I definitely write a bunch of songs as well. So having all of us in the room together, picking and choosing how these arrangements and what parts are going to stay and what parts are going to go, that was incredible. And again, not being forced and not being hurried along.
So my follow-up to that is, when you're dealing with only band members' opinions, sometimes you're kind of tunnel visioned as to what each of your own personal thoughts are of where the song goes. And that's sometimes where the producer might be able to, from the outside looking in, make the situation easier. Were you guys all on the same page with where these songs were headed? Or was there any conflict in building them to try to get them to where it was a collective, that's what we're talking about?
We actually put out a documentary of us being in the studio. It's on YouTube. It's called Do No Wrong, The Making of Altruistic. And one of the things that we do touch base on is, like, you can be up all night making a riff and you think it's the best thing since sliced bread. You bring it to everybody and everyone could be like, oh boy, that one is a fucking stinker.
Wah, wah.
Well, exactly. And if you're going to sit there and whine about it, yeah, you took some time. We all take time to write songs. You got to think of the betterment of, like, the final song. You know what I mean? Not so much that your part gets in there, because that seems pretty egotistical now, doesn't it? Your ego kind of needs to be kind of fucked off and in another room or something like that. Because if the part doesn't work, well, let's find a part that does. Let's find a part that this song that you could listen to and be like, it's kicks ass. Not, this song is fine, but I'm really happy that I had my fucking 2.5 minute bass solo in there.
See, but you cut it down from 4 minutes, so at least you were being thoughtful there.
I'll meet you halfway. Fuck.
Well, the next track I want to play is The Death of Common Sense.
Oh.
Thematically, would you say the songs across Altruistic are telling a story? And if so, what would you say the overall theme of the album is?
It's hard to say what the overall theme of the song is, or of the album is. The idea of altruism, when we were discussing it, it's like you can look at it so many different ways. One of the things I brought up was altruistic. Is is anybody ever genuinely altruistic? Like, are you doing something so selflessly? Or is there always that idea that you're bettering yourself by helping someone else? You know what I mean?
Very much so, yeah.
And I don't want to take that idea, because doing something good for somebody else, regardless, is good. Being a good person is what the world needs more of. Good people.
Amen. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, I mean, I guess it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. If you're doing it to benefit yourself, but you're doing all this other stuff, then, I mean, if doing it for yourself means you're sleeping better at night, and fuck, all the power to you. I think that's great. But if you're like, you know, if you're doing it just to be seen, I think that maybe that's a little crazy. But again, who the hell am I, really? But I think I think at the end of it all, I think there are some people who selflessly do things for themselves or for other people. And I mean, I like to think that exists. Again, at the end of the day, if you're a good person, that is really what matters the most.
Couldn't have said that better myself. 100% agree. And now the next song that I'm going to pick from Altruistic is actually going to serve us double duty right now, because it's the fourth track I'm sharing from the album, but it's also my choice to kick off side B. And it's the current single from the album, and it's Hated.
Oh, hell yeah.
Daniel has gone on record to say that this song was written from the point of view of someone who is labeled unredeemable. It doesn't campaign for the person's innocence, but poses a question. I found that statement to be absolutely fascinating. Could you elaborate a little bit on this track?
I mean, that's in a nutshell. That's Dan. Like, he was like, when he was explaining what his idea was behind those lyrics, that makes sense. Is there an idea that someone could be changed and welcomed back, almost like, and as if nothing had happened? I mean, one thing we will see, if someone gets out of jail, it's still to this day, it's impossible to get a job. You know what I mean? They'll always look at the blemish of mistakes made in the past. Mm-hmm. And again, we're not campaigning for anything like that, but, you know, it's something that needs to be brought up. It's definitely a very real thing that happens in this world and in our society.
Couldn't agree more. And the song, to me, I could have went with any of those four to kick off the side, but looking at side A, I feel like Hated is the perfect way to continue this. Out of Papa Roach's Kill the Noise, the tape flips over, and there you have Hated. And I think it's a perfect way to get things going. So now you have the tough decision of what you're going to follow up your own song with.
I have my little list written beside me, so if you see me, my eyes just doing some weird shit, that's exactly what I'm doing. You know, I'm gonna go with, when this airs, we'll have been probably several weeks into our cross Canada tour with the band Broken Love.
Yes.
Yeah, they're our homies. I love those dudes. That whole crew has been awesome. We met them while both of us were supporting Pop Evil. We've gone on to do more touring with them. When we were deciding who were going to be our touring partners for I'm not going to say our comeback, but it sort of is. We haven't been really a band since the pandemic thing started. So when we were coming back, we're like, of course, that was an easy decision. Boys, you want to jump back in the van and come out with the boys or what? So that they have this song called Like a Drug.
Yes.
And, and it's one of those goddamn earworms that I find myself when I'm doing something like mowing the lawn or, something like that. I'm always singing that melody. What the hell am I? Oh, this Broken Love. Jeez. Almost want to write him a message. I'm like, stop writing songs like that. Fucking me up.
I absolutely applaud the pick because you just scooped me on the band, on the song. 2022's Black Box. This song is, I'm going to use a word, and you normally don't use it with hard rock, but damn it, it's dancey, but it still rocks at the same time. There's this groove to it that's absolutely undeniable.
I couldn't agree more.
Like a Drug's got such a unique vibe. I'm so happy you picked that because that's one less song I got to stress over now. So bravo. And I'm going to lean into that quote unquote dance vibe. Let me just put this out there for the real hard rock heads out there. I don't mean you're actually going to go out there and actually dance to it. It's one of those ones that just gets your head moving. And I feel like, one of my former guests has a song that I feel the exact same way about as I do Broken Love's Like a Drug. And I feel like it's the perfect follow-up. And I'm going to go off of 2022's Love, Drugs, and Misery. And I'm going to go with Eva Under Fire's Blow featuring Spencer Charnas of Ice Nine Kills.
Oh, hell yeah.
This is one of those hard rock tunes that immediately gets you pumped up. I could see this song being used in WWE or sports broadcasting for like a wrestler coming out or, at the start of I guess based on where they're from, we can maybe say a Detroit Lions game, the entrance theme for them. And this song was also featured in the 2022 movie The Retaliators, which starred Jacoby Shaddix, who we talked about earlier from Papa Roach, Ivan Moody of Five Finger Death Punch, and many others. If you're a fan of Eva Under Fire or hard rock in general, I highly recommend going all the way back to episode 7, the Ultimate Hard Rock Cover Songs playlist, as Eva Marie was my guest curator for that episode, and we dove into a ton of great modern hard rock covers. But I think Broken Love and the Eva Under Fire is just a chef's kiss right here.
Oh, hell yeah.
So with that, we are back to you, Sandy, for track 4.
Track 4. So I'm going to throw it back again. I'm going to throw it back to a band that made me actually want to start playing bass when I was about 10 years old. Rage Against the Machine.
Oh, there we go.
I got tickets for them when they were doing their tour. And unfortunately, they canceled that portion in Canada where we are. And I was heartbroken. I was like, oh, but they'll be back. And then late last year when they announced they are not going to be getting back together, I was mortified. I was pissed off, but I get it. It's the way it goes. It's the nature of the beast. It's just a bummer because I have never, that's a bucket list band that I'll now never be able to see. The song I chose was from their covers album, which is I know it's weird, but I also wanted to add the song I picked is such a killer rap song that I just wanted to put it on my list. So I figured, why don't I just do the cover? And it's that How I Could Just Kill a Man, the Cypress Hill cover. One thing I want you to do when you listen to it next is if you turn it up, the recording of it sounds demented. The bass is almost blown out. It sounds like the speaker they're using is flapping in the wind. And it just sounds so raw. And I thought, what a powerful choice song to pick to do. Like a metal band doing How I Could Just Kill a Man, a Cypress Hill cover. The song gets me jacked.
Let's be honest, the original is a heavy, badass song.
100%.
Only Rage Against the Machine could take that up a notch.
I totally agree.
And I will say the seed that How I Could Just Kill a Man planted was part of when they did the Prophets of Rage with Chuck D. I feel like the seed was planted when Rage covered How I Could Just Kill a Man. The love became there between those guys and the guys in Cypress Hill. And how could it not?
Well, yeah. Sendog from Cypress Hill was in a metal. It was in a hardcore band in the Cypress Hill era. And I can't remember what the hell it's called off the top of my head.
Oh, yeah. Power Flow. That's
right. But hard hip hop going with metal is not that crazy. Like you got Public Enemy and Anthrax and all that kind of stuff. It's and when you hear it, it doesn't sound that crazy. It just sounds cool.
Couldn't agree more. As a bassist, one of the first songs that I literally had to lock myself in the room and figure out. And it's one of my, it's my May I Help You riff. If I'm going to a music store to look at a bass, I start playing the opening to Bomb Track.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like that's my, am I going to like the sound of this bass? So I love the fact that you picked Rage. I'm all in 100% on that. I'm going to pivot now.
Okay.
And these two songs on paper do not go well back to back. However, we're kind of zigging and zagging on this side between different styles. So I feel because of that, it's going to work really well. And this is a song that I rocked all throughout 2023. And instead of leaning into the hip hop and the heavier side of things, I'm going to pull from the 70s arena rock and hard rock and garage rock. And I'm going to throw them into a blend. I'm not actually doing it. The band did it. Throwing these genres into a musical blender and getting White Reaper's Fog Machine from 2023's Asking for a Ride. This is everything I love about Cheap Trick, Thin Lizzy, and all the bands on that era. However, it's got a modern, fresh spin. There's nothing that sounds 70s or dated about White Reaper. They honor the 70s sound, but make it sound modern. And to me, that's not an easy thing to do. So I love this song so much. If you go back to episode 50, the songs of 2023 featuring D.T. Carroll of Space Castle, you can hear more about this one. But White Reaper owned 2023 with Fog Machine as far as I'm concerned. What a killer track.
I can't get over how many of those songs made my my year in review on Spotify. I love that record so much. And Fog is such a killer track. I totally agree. It's got the Thin Lizzy vibe, but it almost has like a punk vibe to it too. It's one of those bands that could literally tour with a punk band, rock band, an indie rock band. It's just like, it's really great songs. I mean, it's pulling from everything, you know what I mean? And it got a lot of play from me.
And the bass lines in it where he's just walking like, it's just like, oh my God, thank you. Like, I just love the way they're able to take the nuances of the sleazy 70s glam and modernize it. And now you get to follow that up.
Oh yeah, absolutely. What am I going to follow it up with actually? I'm going to go with some friends we had met on the Shiprock cruise several years ago, and we stayed in contact, and hopefully at some point we'll do some touring with them. They released a new record at the ass end of last year. It's Beartooth, and the record, The Surface, and I really like their opening, the title track, The Surface. I thought that was a killer riff. It was a cool way to start. Like I really enjoyed the singles they put out leading up to the release of the record, but after I had kind of played them all to death, it was nice to hear some of the new tracks on it, and that one definitely did not disappoint.
I have said it a million times on this show, and people know the next sentence that's going to come out of my mouth. I'm a sucker for album opening tracks. I mentioned it with your opening track on Altruistic. I always pay attention. Like the opening, you got to hook me, or else I might not give the rest of the album a listen. And I know I sound like I'm being elitist and snobby, but if you don't grab people's attention from the get-go in this day and age with streaming, they might not get to track 2. They might veer off in a million different places. And I'm an album listening guy, so the album opener's got to be massive. And I have to say that could be my favorite song. It's tough because I also love Look the Other Way and Riptide. I mean, it's a great album, but The Surface might be the pinnacle of that album too. So I love the fact that you went with that one.
There's another riff in that record that absolutely is a sledgehammer. Is that one he does with Hardy?
Oh, The Better Me.
Oh my God, that pull off riff.
Yep.
That is greasier than all fast food put together.
Absolutely love it. And following that up, Jesus, I'm scrolling up and down my list. Oh, God, I could go in so many different directions here.
As could I, man.
Like, this is, oh, my God. Okay, I'm going to lean into your album opening track here.
Okay.
And I'm going to go with another song, just like Beartooth, was released at the tail end of 2023. And the album is called Pretty Vicious. And like my pick of Lacey Strum, Luke Spiller from the Struts has such a unique voice. I'm going to go with the album opener, Too Good at Raising Hell. When you have a band that channels the Rolling Stones, Queen, David Bowie, and modern hard rock and modern pop music and puts it all together and creates this unique sound. Again, we're pulling from the UK here. The fact that this band isn't a household name yet in the US shocks me. They should be. And there's this pop sensibility to their sound, but it's seamless. They could, like you had said with White Reaper, they could be on so many different bills and seamlessly fit right in and hit with different audiences. The Struts are a band that I could sit with my 70-year-old parents and relate with them on. That's not easy to do in 2024. The fact that they also brought a horn section into this track adds this like level of Exile on Main Street swagger to the song that, look, I love jazz music, and hearing horns in a rock song, if it's done the right way, I think elevates it. And Too Good at Raising Hell is just he's literally blowing on his nails and wiping them on his shirt. There's just such a swagger and such a confidence to this song that I feel it's just a great album opener. And I wish more people knew about the Struts, and I think they're going to. I really think they're going to.
The one thing about the Struts is, I will say this, I fell victim to being a bit of I say the word I'm looking for is maybe a snob. Because I'd seen a picture of them before I actually listened to them. Now, I immediately thought, I'm like, oh, we're going to have another band that's trying to do what The Darkness did, but it's almost going to come across as a joke. And here I am prejudging them before I even listened to it. And that shouldn't be the way I look. I mean, I know how that feels. I shouldn't fucking do that to anybody else. And everything you said is 100% correct. That band is a fucking monster. They sound great. They sound genuine. And so it really shut me up for any kind of preconceived notions that I had about this band. They're a rock and roll band through and through, and they kick ass. And that was my bad to even prejudge that before I even listened to it. You know, that band is right down to tasty guitar licks and really like the swagger you said, 100% there. That singer holds himself with like a giant, and it's awesome.
Well, look, what I've always told people is even Stevie Ray Vaughan would miss a note here and there. We all sometimes look at an artist and judge before we hear it. We've all been there. You see a picture and you're going, I'm not going to like this. Or a band walks out on stage and before they play a single note, you're like, oh God, I don't know if I'm going to dig this. And I'm going to put a pin in that statement.
Okay.
And save it because you have the next pick for track 8.
Oh shit. What am I going to put on for the next one? I am actually we kind of touched base on them earlier on the show, but you had mentioned Tool. Now as an outing for the band, we all went and saw Tool on their last tour, came through Edmonton, and it was incredible. You just sort of stand there and your mouth is wide open. And one of the things, some people have all these ideas of like backing tracks and vocal tracks and blah, blah, blah. But I know for a fact there were no vocal tracks while he was singing out there. And that's the beauty of live music sometimes, is the imperfections of it all. It's why like Art on the Wall looks so great, because it's not perfect. And that's why it should be. Don't get me wrong. I like the idea of like when they add things to make things sound bigger. But if you're enhancing the show, I get it. But if it always sounds the exact same, well, then they're kind of missing the beauty of it all. You know what I mean? And when they played Zombie from 10,000 Days, because I'd been following their Setlist FM stuff, and I'm a total nerd when it comes to that stuff. I'm like, what are they going to play? And I was like, oh, they're not going to. It looked like there was a zone in the set that I saw from all the past ones that they were like, we'll put this one in tonight. We'll put this one in tonight. That they were changing, but they were doing mostly Fear Inoculum stuff. But when they did Zombie in Edmonton, I damn near shit a solid gold brick, because it's that guitar lick at the beginning, and the song starts growing, and you're sitting there going, I've been listening to the song for 3.5 minutes, and the song still hasn't done anything, but it's totally captivated you. And then the drums kind of demolish your ass the whole way to the end. And I couldn't get enough of that song. And when they did it live, felt like like a school kid again, you know, when we first heard heavy music, smiling and acting like a total Goomba.
Oh, I get it. When I saw them in 2019 on the Fear Inoculum tour in New Jersey, I got Jambi in the set list too. And that was
hell yeah.
Okay, if you're picking something from 10,000 Days, you've chosen correctly. There was no
Absolutely.
You chose poorly in this situation. However, I will say I was the one person that I thought I was going to get mugged on the way in, because I walked in saying, I really hope they play Pneuma tonight. And people were like, we don't want to hear all of Fear Inoculum. I'm like, whoa, calm down, guys. I actually like Fear Inoculum. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I love the new album. I think it's great. And Pneuma to me was one of Danny Carey's like drumming opuses. So I love that. And the night I saw them, I got to see them do Enema live. They did Parabole and Parabola back to back, which was like the fact that they mix sets up. I'm the same way. I'm a nerd where if I'm going to see a band, I always look to see what they're playing when, if they mix up the sets from night to night. I had mentioned the Blackened thing from Metallica on side A. I was following every one of their overseas dates, and the first 2 or 3 dates, they didn't play Blackened. And I'm going, son of a bitch, I'm not going to get my Blackened. And then they started reintroducing it. And I'm like, oh God, but New Jersey's the first show on the US tour, so I have no clue. It could be resetting the slate, and they might not play it again. But thankfully they did. So I totally get where you're going with that.
Yeah, man. And you know what? I'm with you. I like Fear Inoculum. But here's the thing, is there's so many years between every Tool album that Tool fans get to sit there and get to know it for years and years and years. We didn't really get that with Fear Inoculum. And I think that's why you were probably going to get mugged.
Yeah, I mean, but at the end of the day, I feel like, and I've listened to the albums many, many times since 2019. It ages like I'm sure Maynard would be happy to hear this. It ages like a fine wine because,
Exactly.
And I'm really hoping we don't have to wait until 2027 to get another Tool album. I'm hoping we get something sooner than that.
I hope so too. But when I was a kid, to kind of go back a little bit, the first Rage Against the Machine and the first LP by Tool, Undertow, were like, to me, those were like the Bibles, you know what I mean? And then when you have Maynard actually singing on the Rage Against the Machine record.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh, of course these guys are one of the same and cool as hell.
And when I knew Tool was always going to be a band that I had respect for was when I learned that both Danny Carey and Maynard, well, Danny played drums and Maynard was one of the voices in Green Jello's Three Little Pigs.
Yeah.
Maynard is the nut by the hair of my chinny chin. When I found out that was Maynard, I'm like, this dude's friggin' awesome. Like, they don't take themselves so seriously all the time, but their music says otherwise. And I love that fact.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's cool.
All right, so now I'm going to pull the pin out of what I was thinking before. And this is a band that I saw open up for Shinedown. And the only thing I knew about them was one of my friends told me they were kind of emo rock, which casts a wide net. And there is some emo rock I'm a big fan of and other emo rock that I'm not at all. And going by just that and the band's name, I feel like I formed an opinion without hearing a single note. And to this day, I regret even having that thought enter my mind. So here we are at the show. I didn't know what to expect. And I usually do a ton of research of the bands I'm going to go see as opening acts, so I'm familiar with everything. However, we had just driven up to New Hampshire that day, and my father-in-law said to me as soon as we got out of the car, have you ever heard of this band Shinedown? And I said, of course, I love them. He goes, my neighbor's selling tickets. They're like 7th row, and she just wants to sell them just to get rid of them because they can't go tonight. They're like $60 she's going to sell them for. Do you and Katie, my wife, want to go see it? I said, of course, we'll take a night out. We just spent 7 hours in the car with the kids. We'll take it. So we went over there and I got to see and hear for the first time ever. We got there just in time to see Dinosaur Pile Up opened, which I love those guys, and they're in my list as well. But Bad Flower was on next, and their set blew my friggin' mind. And I'm going to go with the song The Jester. As soon as they were done with their set, I walked right over to the merch table, bought the CD, and it's been in constant rotation ever since. That song just hit me in such an emotional level. I feel like they're definitely one of those bands that is just on the cusp of exploding to something a lot bigger. And if they keep on the path they're at, they're going to be headlining the places Shinedown does, I think. So I'm going to go with the Jester.
Man, that band Bad Flower is so good. I know Broken Love has done an American tour with them, but we actually played with it as well on Shiprocked, and I got to meet some of the guys in the band. We're all super nice, chill dudes. I'm with you. When they got on stage, I was like, I had no idea what to expect, and they absolutely lit the place on fire. They were unbelievable.
Yeah.
Good singers, good players, good vibe on stage. Like when it was time to get tender, it was time to get tender. When it was time to rock out, it was like, holy shit, this is killer.
And it was a total roller coaster for the entire set. And my wife even turned to me and she said, I wasn't expecting this. And neither was I. It's just, they blew the roof off the place. And I know immediately why Shinedown brought them out, because Shinedown doesn't bring weak opening acts with them. I know that there's been this talk in rock music that bands like to bring in groups that they know they could do better than on stage. Shinedown always seems to be that band that brings out groups that challenge them to be better on stage. And to me, when a band brings a talented opening act out on the road with them, the winner is the audience.
Absolutely.
And I want to see bands challenging each other. Look, it's not a competition. Please let me state that. But when you bring a band out that you know is going to destroy the place every single night, and then you get to do the same, it's just more amazing concert memories for the people in attendance.
Man, the idea that, like, from a musician standpoint, it's like, man, we're all in this together, man. We've been doing this, like, we've been slugging it out. For someone to, like, try to, like, almost sabotage your career, that seems, to me, fucking bananas. Like, that's crazy. Why would someone do that? Also, it's art, It's so hard to say that this one's better than this because everything is so subjective.
Frickin' man. That is something I preach each and every single episode on this show.
Yeah.
If a song doesn't vibe with you, that doesn't mean that the person next to you isn't moved to tears. And neither one of you are wrong. But the fact that a band can sometimes command where people that normally wouldn't vibe to it and bring them in and convince them through their stage show and through their performance. Again, the winners are the audience. And to me, when people go in with a closed mind, they're missing out because there's so much amazing stuff that they're too in their box, too narrow-minded to embrace. So I'm always the person that says, what time does the first band go on? And my buddy's going, well, we can hang out in the parking lot. Hell, you can hang out in the parking lot. I want to see every band on the bill because I have no idea if my next favorite band is on this bill tonight.
Hell yeah. Well, the old saying, what's good for the goose ain't good for the gander.
Amen.
I do also, like, as a collective, if all the bands rock, I mean, for me personally, bringing out one, people that are cool, good hang, and two, a band that I like. I mean, it's like, why would you bring out someone that you want to stomp around? That's bully mentality, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And rock and roll ain't got a place for fucking bullies, you know what I mean?
Nope. I've always been the kind of person where if I'm at a show and there's an opening band and somebody's not giving them a chance, I find another place to go hang because it ruins my experience, especially when you get people that have had a couple too many and they think that they're the star of the room. Drives me nuts. It's like concert etiquette to me. Go and be in the moment. And if you don't want, go hang at the bar. If it's not your thing, no problem. But make room for the people that want to be up front, man.
It's a challenge every night. I kind of embrace the idea of someone being like, your band sucks. I'm like, fuck yeah.
Well, Sandy, we have talked about 19 songs tonight.
Okay.
And as my guest, you kick things off and you also get the privilege or despair of closing out this playlist.
Oof.
What is the cherry on top of our hard rock playlist?
Now, if you were me, would you go on the side of sweet or would you go on the side of like thunderish?
Considering when this song ends, the tape's going to flip over and go back to Seeing Red by the Architects. I'd go out thunderous. I'd go out thunderous. So that way it continues this endless loop of the story we've told. But that's just me. That's just me.
Well, you know what? Yeah, you're right. okay, there's a brand new band, and they're considered a metal band, but I don't know if I would agree with the statement. I think they're brand new, and I almost feel like when I'm like, oh, these kids listen to crazy shit nowadays, you know what I mean? But I can't seem to stop listening to their stuff. And they wear masks like Slipknot and all that stuff, but they keep showing up on my feeds, and Spotify seems to know that I like it. And it's that band Sleep Token.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, and everything about it, like I was kind of like, again, dragging my ass to get into it, because I was like, oh, everything in my being is saying, you don't like this, but I fucking do like it. And I'm not going to pick one of their singles, because I actually found a B-side that I found to be, like, in my opinion, top notch. And it's the ending track on their new record, Take Me Back to Eden. But the song is called Euclid. And at first I was like, I didn't know what to think about it, but his melodies are so syncopated with pop sensibilities that it's like, I'm having a tough time not listening to the song again right after I listen to it. It's catchy. It's got some heavier bits in it. They revisit parts from other songs where they kind of put, it's a very great track.
Sleep Token, to me, and maybe this is because we're based in the US and they're from out of England, I feel like they just came from out of nowhere, out of the blue. And everybody overnight just knew who they were. And that might be because people were fans of them from overseas. And then when they started playing shows in the US, they just naturally exploded. I love the fact that, again, you can't put it in a box. Is it metal? Is it progressive? I use the word in quotes. There's progressive elements. There's indie rock and pop elements all kind of thrown together. And again, that means it's its own thing, and it's unique and it's different.
Yeah.
And I'll just say it. I don't think they need the masks, but I think they probably helped in the beginning to make the story. But I think the music stands without the masks.
Totally.
But then again, rewind many decades ago when Kiss started. Was it the makeup that got them exposure, or was it the fact that they had great songs? And the answer is yes to both, but would the music have gotten there without the two together? I don't know. I don't know how finicky the music scene was back then, because it was before I was born. But to me, I don't think Sleep Token needs it, but I think it's part of the experience as well now.
Yeah. And again, it's his piece of art, and it's how he's presenting it. And again, that's when I'm going, do whatever the hell you want. It's your piece. Let's hear how it goes. I mean, if I can sit there and listen to your music and not know how you look, I don't give a shit, right? But it's like, if I go and see you live and that's part of your whole package, then all the power to you. You know, at the end of the day, I love Kiss too. I fucking love Kiss. But yeah, again, like when I first heard them, I was almost wondering, I'm like, maybe I'm the wrong demographic for it. But I gave it another try, and I was like, Jesus Christ, he's got some nice melodies there. And I kind of kept going from there. And I've been following them. I've kind of heard them during when we were forced to be at home, so I didn't have anywhere to be. So I got a real good chance to sit with these records and kind of get to know them a little bit better, you know. And I thought that band really, really shone because it was totally different from all the other stuff I was listening to.
And I think the vibe coming out of the Jester into Sleep Token is just perfect.
I was going to go with Bleed by Meshuggah.
Okay.
And end it like a real kick in the ass. But then right as I was about to say it, I kind of looked down, I'm like,
and that's the fun of this. It's totally spontaneous.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, there you have it, folks. Side B of our ultimate hard rock mixtape, which kicked off with Royal Tusk's Hated, Broken Love's Like a Drug, Eva Under Fire's Blow, Rage Against the Machine's How I Could Just Kill a Man, White Reaper's Fog Machine, Beartooth's The Surface, The Struts' Too Good at Raising Hell, Tool's Zombie, Bad Flowers' The Jester, and Sleep Token's Euclid. Head over to myweeklymixtape.com to hear all the songs we've discussed in this mix through the playlist embedded on the episode page. Now, Sandy, Altruistic is out in the open right now. What does the rest of 2024 have in store for Royal Tusk?
Well, I mean, when this comes out, we'll be ass deep in a Canadian tour. Touring Canada in the middle of winter. I mean, I don't know who the hell's bright idea was that, but I mean,
Couldn't do Key West.
Oh yeah, no shit. But yeah, I think we'll finish the Canadian tour. We're using this time to actually reintroduce ourselves to everybody that, because we've been gone for a little while due to personal sicknesses and and it's fun to put new music out, and you get those messages from people that didn't leave our sides and stuff like that, and they know who they are, and we love them so much, and everybody from coast to coast, from as tippy north to as tippy south to Texas, you know what I mean? Like, everyone has been showing us love, and I can't wait to get back out there. And so hopefully we'll be back down to America sooner than later, and hopefully back to Europe as well too.
Well, I was going to say, if you're going to be coming back with a statement, Altruistic is the statement to come back with. Congratulations on the new album. Look forward to seeing you guys when you swing through New Jersey. This has been an absolute pleasure, Sandy. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me on My Weekly Mixtape.
My man, thanks for thinking of us, man. That was awesome. That was super fun.
Remember, you can find My Weekly Mixtape on almost all the social media haunts at My Weekly Mixtape. You can also head to myweeklymixtape.com to check out the full catalog of My Weekly Mixtape episodes. And if you like what you're hearing on the show, you can help me out by either telling a friend, leaving the show a 5-star review wherever you're tuning in, or becoming a Patreon mixtaper at patreon.com/My Weekly Mixtape. That's all for this week. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, enjoy the tunes.